before. Look at us. We're already fighting.
Well, that's what we do. We fight. You tell me when I'm being an arrogant son of a bitch, and I tell you when you're being a pain in the ass. Which you are, 99% of the time. What do you want?
It's not that simple.
What do you want?
Today's news, as I'm sure you've already heard, reading directly off of the U.S. Department of Justice's website, Binance and CEO plead guilty to federal charges, resulting in a $4 billion resolution. And just a couple hours ago, CZ posted this tweet, which is basically a resignation letter to Twitter. I'm not going to read this right now, so you can go ahead and check this out for yourself. And I just made this tweet saying that Binance made one critical mistake. If you're going to be associated with money laundering, first bribe U.S. government officials, use U.S. dollars, and use the U.S. banking system for transfers. If you do that, you're good to go. Now, I know there's a lot of news, but you guys don't come to this channel for the news. You come here for the charts, the trends, and the price action. And that's what I want to talk about today. Now, if I zoom into the chart, as I'm making this video, what we see is that Bitcoin is coming down on the hourly chart, right? And so if I just remove this for a second, Bitcoin is starting to push the lows here of the upward sloping structure. If you look, Bitcoin has been in generally an area of higher lows. And so if Bitcoin can't maintain this trend and we're breaking down on the daily RSI, this is going to signal a possible flush to the downside, a possible retrace to the downside, right? If we don't hold this. I'm not saying it's going to happen. I'm not saying it has happened or it's confirmed yet. The confirmation would come if we close the daily below this RSI trend line, and if the price action starts to push below this uptrend line here as well. So you need two confirmations, a break of structure and the indicator. So you never want to just use one thing, right? Because we could break down on the RSI, but the price doesn't break its trend and then we don't break down, right? So you want two confirmations. It is, of course, totally possible that Bitcoin could at some point look to see a dip to retest support, get some accumulation going at lower levels before continuing the uptrend. These types of major dips are actually really, really common before we reach all-time highs. When Bitcoin is below the all-time high, seeing 20% down, 40% down on the way is actually very common. So let's go back in time to previous cycles. So let's go right here to 2015 to 2016. After we come off of this low point here, 2015, Bitcoin then runs up. And when you look back in time and you look at this chart, you go, well, yeah, obviously it was bullish, right? But it wasn't so obvious back then because think about this. The chart actually looked like this. This is what the chart looked like that. So when the chart looks like this, when Bitcoin's just playing out normally, right? And you're just watching the market and it looks like this. I mean, you can imagine what people are thinking or feeling or what you're going to see on Twitter. People on Twitter are going to go, oh, it's over. The price is most likely going to end up breaking down and going to zero, right? You're going to see all that kind of, crypto, panic and all that kind of stuff that we always see whenever the price dips. So keep that in mind that 40% down is totally normal. Something like this, whether we break down sooner or later, big pullbacks along the way are quite common. Bitcoin, if it retraces back to the high that's about 15, maybe 20% down, and it's possible that if, let's say, Bitcoin goes even higher than where it is now, seeing a correction of 40%, so let's just say Bitcoin hits like 52,000 or something, that's what a 40% correction looks like, guys. That's pretty insane, right? That's 40% right there. And you can imagine if the chart looked like this, what people would be thinking. They would be thinking, oh, it's over. We were at 52 and now we're at 31, must be over, right? But it's really just a buy the dip scenario as it is before every halving, right? So regardless of this bearish stuff in the short term that we're discussing, just keep in mind it is pre-halving price action, which in the past has always been a buy the dip scenario. So pre-halving dumps are a buy the dip type of dumps, right? It's only 40 to 80 weeks after the halving that you should start to get worried when you see big corrections, right? Because that's usually when the bear markets begin. So just wanted to sort of show you what these things can actually end up looking like. So if they happen, you're not really caught off guard. as you're seeing it now in the chart. Big swings are likely to happen. People are going to get shaken out, but just keep in mind, it's all very normal for Bitcoin. People are probably going to be asking me, what are my price targets? Well, if we do bounce, I think it's quite possible that we may end up doing something like this, where the price goes up and hits a higher high with bearish divergence, and then maybe even hits another higher high with even more bearish divergence. And then we see the correction take place later when we break down to the RSI trend line. Because eventually you break down out of the trend line, right? It could be happening today, that's possible. But if we bounce, I'd be looking for something more like this. The 4236 comes in at 41,000. So that's where I'd be looking for the next bullish target. Now for bearish targets, if Bitcoin doesn't play out that type of a scenario as I just depicted, and let's say we break down sooner rather than later, well, I think that most likely everyone and their mother is sort of planning to buy Bitcoin at this previous resistance as new support. I think everybody would be liking, probably would be pretty attractive for most people here that are Bitcoiners or looking to enter the market to buy at this area of value, where that would be constructive price action, really good accumulation zone, putting in bullish structure, guys. Like something like that. People are just afraid of dips because they think downside is bad, but it's actually, it can be constructive and it can be positive. So if we do see a pullback and we see that breakdown, right, we get those confirmations, then I'd be looking for something along these lines. But again, because everyone is going to want to buy at about 31,500, maybe we don't even go that low. It could be more shallow. It's like that 33,500 zone, right? A little bit of a front run on that area of interest, those previous resistance points. It could be that the support is front ran and people actually buy up the market a little bit higher than that. So 33,500 possibly, if not, maybe 31,500. So those are my areas for the downside test that I'd be looking for. I want to keep this video short and sweet. Remember, what we're talking about here is just short term. Long term, pre-halving, so I think the halving's like 135 days away. And historically, every dip is a buy the dip scenario. So don't be too scared if you do see downside based on today's news, right? I mean, it's quite possible that this might lead to some downside, but keep in mind that this was actually a headwind for Bitcoin. This was like a sort of an issue that has just been sitting there for a while, that has been looming for years. And now this is actually being resolved. So this is positive in the end, even if it causes some short-term downside, this news. Ultimately, this is sort of another problem that we've crossed off the list for Bitcoin. And this is actually setting us up for the bull market to get rid of these potential issues now, clean up the industry now so that we can move forward and get ready for this next cycle. I really hope you guys enjoyed this video. Be sure to sign up for Kraken Pro below. That is the platform you guys see me using here. And also join Patreon if you want to support this channel and see what I'm doing in the market. Smash the like, subscribe, and I'll see you all in the next video.